Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. A big hooray! Adobe have fixed the problems with Lightroom and its transferabilities into Photoshop. If you haven't already done so, look to update your Lightroom to 12.5. It's available in the Adobe app for CC, and also there's been a new update for Photoshop Beta 25.0. I think it's 0.0.2, so that's also now available, and it all works very, very well. The first time you do a transfer, there's a little bit of a delay. I had it crash on me once. The Adobe program crashed to say there was a problem. I redid it and it was fine, and I haven't had the problem again. So go ahead and update, and then we can be doing our transfers between Lightroom and Photoshop, and we can be playing with Generative Fill again, which is one of my favorite tools. So here you are, we're in San Francisco. This was a couple of weeks ago. I had to try to get iconic shot top of California where it meets Powell, and you're able to get the Bay Bridge in the distance whilst you're looking down the street. So this is the final image that I've processed, and you might think, well, don't seem to have done very much, Jamie. No day to night, not an awful lot happening. That's very true. There is a few little things done here, but the main work was done with Generative Fill, which allows us to really improve our images. And let me just show you the before image. That's where we were. All the cars, traffic, signs, everything is there. So we've gone from that into the final image. The raw image for this is available. The link is down below in the comments. Feel free to download and follow along with me. Practice using the generative fill, as I will be doing. And all I ask is you please respect my copyright. If you do use the image for your own social media or online, please just give credit to Jamie Mathlin. That would be very much appreciated. If you like what I'm doing here on YouTube, please click like. Also, please drop me a comment. I always like to hear what you have to say. And if you have anything you'd like, any questions you'd like to raise, again, feel free to raise those. And also, any tips that you might want to give. I've learned quite a lot from people giving me tips as we've been going along. So if you haven't already subscribed, then please feel free to subscribe. Join me on this adventure. I'm having a great time here. And without further ado, okay, let's get started. As you can see, I shot this in 1/250th of a second, f9, ISO 100. I was using my 70 to 200 f4 lens, and I was shooting at 124mm. So I was trying to draw the whole scene together, because if we used a wide-angled lens and we let the cable car get quite close to us, then we wouldn't have been able to see the details. Certainly wouldn't have been able to see the Bay Bridge in the distance. So what are we going to do? Well, as I said earlier, I'm really happy that Adobe have fixed the problem with Lightroom. The new version 12.5 allows us to transfer over to Photoshop again, which is great. And there is a new update also for Photoshop. It's 25.0.2. So look for that as well in your Adobe app. Just want to say a great big thank you to Adobe for fixing the problems. So we're back in action, and we'll use that transfer process in a moment. I'm just going to do some just minor changes to this just before we do go over into Photoshop. I want to I'm just going to open up the shadows just a little bit, bring down those highlights, and also there's a slight haze there, so I'm just going to dehaze ever so slightly. There we go, just down to about +30 on the dehaze, just to take some of that haze out. Just going to do my blacks, my whites, so I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key on a Windows, and just going to move that until we see the whites starting to appear. And the same with the blacks. Well, we're okay with the blacks. There is a little bit of black there, so that's fine. I'm just going to go down to run the denoise whilst we're here. I know it's ISO 100, but if we do get in close, let's go into 300%. Just let that clear. You can see there is just a little bit of noise, even at ISO 100. So we're just going to run the denoise just to make sure that we get rid of any noise that's there. I'm going to go at 50%, and I'm going to stack this. So the original is going to be put behind the new noise reduction. So we just click go on that and let that run at the moment. So this is what we're looking at here, this side of this building. You can see a little bit of heat haze there towards the Bay Bridge in the distance, and the cars traveling across the bridge there. So it was a nice day in San Francisco. It was nice and warm, which is a bit of a surprise sometimes when you're there, to have some nice warm weather. So no fog, which was nice. So there you go. That's got rid of all the noise that's there. So very happy with that. I'm just going to zoom back out. So the next thing I'm going to do is just check the perspective and the transform, just to make sure these buildings are in fact vertical. So I'm just going to try auto initially to see where that takes us. And that seems to be okay, but I'm going to go to guided. I'm going to take this black line along the edge of this building here. Just take one there, just take one on the edge of this white building as well. There we go. So those two we want to be parallel, and then I want to be sure that we've got a horizontal that's parallel as well. So I'm going to do the top of this road here, just going to come across to there, and that will pull everything so everything is parallel and straight. So happy with that. Good. Right, so just going to look at the crop just before we leave here. So going to go to the crop at the top. I'm thinking, where do we need to go? Do we need to take anything out here? You know, I'm not really going to change. I think I cropped reasonably well there. So just going to reset that second. Yeah. So we'll have to take out the little emblem on the building because it's right on the edge there. So, but otherwise, I think we're going to deal with the vehicles and tidy this scene up. So yeah, I'm happy to take this over into Photoshop, just bringing up those shadows just a little bit further, and I'm just going to pop in a little bit of vibrance as well. So we've got nice colors on the shot. Perhaps brighten the scene just slightly and add a little bit of contrast. There we go. Right click on the image, edit in, Adobe Photoshop. Here we go. Fantastic. Everything's working again, which is really good news. So I'm just going to zoom to fit. So I hit the magnifying glass, click fit to screen, and there we go. We've got the scene here. So first things I want to do, using one of my more favorite tools now, is Generative Fill, and just remove some of these vehicles and see if we can tidy this scene up a little bit. So I'm going to go for my lasso tool. Now remember what I always say, zoom in nice and close. So I'm going back on the magnifying glass. I've got the positive here. I'm just going to zoom in on these cars. Got the lasso tool, and I'm just going to run around relatively close to the top of these vehicles and include the aerial there. That's it. Around the back of the cars. And always remember, when you are doing these things, to capture any shadows that will be around. So I'm just going to go back up outside the screen. There we go. I'm going to click Generative Fill, and I'm going to click Generate. Now, when I click Generate, I'm going to go quiet for a minute because I'm just going to speed up just so the video isn't too long and everybody's waiting for the Generative Fill to take place. Okay, there we go. So it's come up with some options. One of the things I like now about Generative Fill also is, instead of 3 options, we now get 4 options. So that's actually pretty good. You've got the sidewalk there, and you've got the road crossing at the bottom, and the bottom of the trees are in the shot. Let's see what number 2's like. It's also pretty good. Tree comes down to the ground there. Oh, that's it. Got like a turning on there. That also works quite well. And that one there. So, you know, I'm quite happy with number 1. So I'm happy with that. They've got rid of the thank you Adobe buttons, which is a shame. Let's go up here. I want to get rid of this sign here, and then I'm just going to again just come round using the lasso tool. Just going to go around. I'm going to take this sign out as well whilst we're at it. Around the tree there, and then just as you can see, I'm sort of trying to stay relatively close to the sign. So Generative Fill and Generate. Okay, like always, a great job there, number 1. And it looks like it's included an air conditioning unit over there. Number 2 is better. Number 3 is okay. So I'm going to go with number 2 very happy with that. I want to take away the turn left sign, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come in across the top and we're going to include a bit of the lamppost there, and hope that Generative Fill can understand that we're just trying to get rid of the sign. There we go, much better. It's kept the top of the traffic light in this time. I'm just going to swap over to the remove tool. So it's under the spot healing brush tool J, second one down, remove tool, and I'm just going to bring these all together, merge the visible, excellent. And what I want to do is just get rid of the parking sign there, and these blue parking signs over here. Now the reason I swapped to the remove tool is that it works very well where you've got like a sort of random background, like trees, for example. Over here there's something in the tree there, and it's able to deal with these things very easily, and it takes far less time than the Generative Fill does. So happy with that. So let's do something a little bit more challenging. We want to remove these cars now, and I also would like to remove this sign. Whilst we're on the remove tool, let's give it a go. So we're just going to come in here, and we will use the remove tool to remove the back of this sign. There we go, worked perfectly. We'll leave the traffic light in. So back to the lasso tool, and we're going to run along the top of the road here. In fact, I'm just going to deselect that. I'm going to right click on the lasso tool and do the polygonal lasso tool, which means I can draw straight lines. So I'm going to come in on the top of this piece of tarmac here, and I can work my way across the tarmac, just keeping a nice straight edge there. And I'm just going to come down here around these cars in the distance, make sure we get the door mirror in of the little truck here. I'm going to take out that little bit of sign that's sticking out there, and I'm going to come across here. So it's nice to use the polygonal tool because you can do nice straight lines as you work your way around. And it's not very good for doing selections, but it works quite well with Generative Fill. So there we go. We should be joined back up now. There we go. Right. So let's go Generative Fill and generate. It does always really impress me what it comes up with. So that's option 1. That's option 2. That doesn't work so well. Option 3 is pretty good. Option 4, that's okay. So I think 3 is possibly the best one there. Maybe 4. Yeah, maybe 4 is the one to go with. I'm not sure about this here. Maybe we can deal with that separately. I'm just have a look again. 1. No, I'm going to go with 1. I'm happy with 1. So so that's very good. Let's move across the other side. Still zoom right in. So we're going to deal with these cars here. So I can use the polygonal tool again. So I'm just going to do a selection of straight lines to show you that you can do any which way really to make your selections when you're working around. I mean, the lasso tool works extremely well, but you do find that you have to have a pretty steady hand to get everything the way you want it. So see, I've got the shadows. Did you see that I went around the shadows there? So just close that round. So Generative Fill and generate. There we go, and by magic, it's a bit messy around there, I must admit. Let's see what option 2 is. No, that's pretty good. Pretty good indeed. So number 2, number 3 is no good, number 4 is no good. So I think number 2 is the one I'm going to go with. Now, let me show you something quite clever about Generative Fill. You see this sign, this collection of signs are behind the trees, right? So, and it may prove me wrong, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw around these signs by going round the trees here, just to say to Adobe, look, hey, we want rid of the signs, but I want you to leave the trees in. Let's see where we got to here. So there we go. You can just hit return when you get pretty close to where you want to be. So generative fill and generate. And there we go. You see what I mean? It's taken that sign out. It's given us 2 or 3 options. I think number 2 is the best one. So I'm going to stick with number 2 there. It's pretty good. Just zoom out a little bit. I'm going to do the same here. Take out these people. So I'm going to go back to the lasso tool. So right click there. And we're just going to draw around these people. Remember to get their shadow. I'm going to do one at a time. Generative fill and generate. There's one gone. Let's draw around the other person. I'll come back to that other person on the hill there in a moment. Got the shadow. I'm also going to take out this sign and then return back. So generative fill and generate. That's pretty good. I'm just going to take out this person. So there is a tree in the way, or a lamppost, not sure which. I'm just going to go around the person and then click generative fill and generate. Perfect. Right, let's move over a little bit. Let's get this row of cars here. So same as we did before. I'm just going to move that out of the way a second. So I'm going to go back to the polygonal so I can get a nice straight edge. I'm going to take a nice straight edge across there. I think I'll take out the parking machine as well. And then we will go around this car and follow our way around. So what we're trying to do is leave a little bit of an overhang so that the algorithm can figure out exactly what it is we're trying to achieve here. Come back down onto that road surface and then back over to there. Generative fill and generate. Incredible. There we go. So a couple of different options. Quite like that one. Looks like it's falling away down there. That's pretty good. And then we're just going to use generative fill one more time to take out this this sign here. So we're just going around the sign. Generative fill and generate. Here we go. Perfectly removed and hasn't harmed the tree in any way. Let's go back to the remove tool. And I'm just going to bring all the layers together. So what you can do is right click, and you don't need to select all of them, and just click merge visible and it brings them all together. So here's the remove tool. We're just going to take out that sign as well. We don't need politics in our art. Now do you see this this pigeon that's flying right in the center here? So let's see if remove tool can cope with that and keep the tracks in place. It can. Excellent. I don't want this car here right on the middle of the tracks, so let's see if we can remove tool can deal with that, and it does as well. So that's excellent. Just going to take away the parking sign here, and I think we're pretty good. I might choose to just remove these cars here because they're very close to the side of the cable car here. We could try the remove tool. Let's give it a go and just try and remove them all in one go. See if it can do it. If not, we will use generative fill to do the work that we need to do. So let's see. No, it didn't do a good job, so I'm undo that. I'm going to go back to the lasso tool, and I'm just going to come around. Remember to get the shadows, always important. So I've done a few videos and people have picked me up on it as well, where I've used generative fill and I haven't picked up the shadow, and when I've removed something, we've been left with strange shadows on the ground. It looks a bit crazy really, but and well spotted by people. So that's quite a tight selection we've done there. So generative fill and generate. Yeah, that's done pretty well as well. Now, I just looking at the front here, I know that the cable cars have operators, but having his back to us with his yellow jacket doesn't work so well. The remove tool, let's try that. So let's just bring these together, merge visible. I'm just going to see if we can take her out. Yeah, that worked. Let's try the remove tool on the driver. Let's see if that works. Well, that's certainly better. Yeah, we can darken that down when we move to the back to Lightroom. So I think we are pretty well happy that we've dealt with the sort of objects in the foreground. I think one thing I would like to do is just remove the white writing on the road. It's a little bit distracting. I'm going to make my remove brush a little bit bigger by using the square brackets to the left of the return key, and I'm just going to draw over that M. Here we go, to take that a little bit out there as well. Let's do the U. It's clever how the remove tool. I remember how excited I was when we got the remove tool to begin with, let alone the generative fill function. I mean, I was so impressed with what the remove tool could do. And as you can see here, just using the remove tool to take these letters off, it leaves the lines. And here, look, with the U, I cross over where the cable actually runs in the center of the road, and it sorts it out. It leaves it there. So let's get rid of the O from only, and then the N. Just get those bits sorted. A little bit there. A little bit tidier now. Yep, happy with that. So zooming back, I think we've just got the building logo to remove, and we can use the remove tool for that. That's no problem at all. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. I think the traffic light coming out here is a little bit distracting, so I am just going to take that out. Now, some people do give me comments and say, well, you know, you make so many changes to your images that they're just not real anymore. And I say to those people, well, yeah, they're not exactly as they were, because I'm not a big fan of signs and advertising and politics and everything else. And let's be honest, if we're taking photographs to actually produce a little bit of art, you know, it's a bit like painting, isn't it? I get a lot of satisfaction from taking an original image, making changes to it, altering things, keeping it looking realistic. If people didn't know that we'd removed everything, they wouldn't know. So you guys have the luxury of following me through and seeing what it is that I do, and then, you know, we can have that conversation about what do we think is real or not real. At the end of the day, I just consider it to be art, and I have a great deal of fun doing it, and I hope you guys have a great deal of fun watching and also practicing yourselves on your own images. So so based on what we've done here, I think that's a lot tidier. We're in a much better position, and I'll do it before and after when we get towards the end. So let's send this back to Lightroom. So I'm going to go to File, Close, because I don't want it in Photoshop anymore. I'm going to save it, and then it goes back into Lightroom. So let's see before we sent it to Photoshop. There we go. Busy, lots going on, and after we've sent it to Photoshop and it's come back. Much happier with this. So okay, whilst I remember, I'm just going to sort out this this little bit on the front here. We just need to change the color of this so it matches the color of the other windows, and we can do that by going to a mask, and we can take object, and what I can do is make my brush a little bit smaller using the square brackets to the left of the return key, and I'm just going to take the whole window and ask the object tool to select the window for us. So there we go. Got a nice mask of that window. So it's quite blue. It needs to have a little bit more green and a little bit more yellow in it. So I'm just going to bring the temp up slightly and bring the tint down slightly, just to get them similar color. It still needs to be a little bit more on the yellow there, just to take that blue away a little bit, and I might even go a little bit more green so it matches a little bit. And I can just maybe back off the contrast just slightly, or maybe increase the contrast slightly. Maybe that's probably where we need to go. Let's have a look, see if that works. Yeah, probably around about there. And also we can back the clarity off just a little bit, just to try to get them to match. And I might just reduce the saturation just to get the colors to match. They are. That's almost correct. So so happy with that. I think when I took the shot, I did focus. Even though I was at f9, it looks like the focus fell on the road down here, and the front of this carriage is not perfectly in focus here. So I think what we should do is we should actually sharpen this up slightly, because it's actually the main subject here. So again, I'm going to go into mask. I'm going to create a new mask. I'm going to select object, make my my brush just a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to go around and I'm going to select the cable car and make sure that everything with the cable car is effectively selected, so then we can sharpen this part. So I'm just painting that in, and there we go, and then it will select. There we go, it selected it for us. So we want to increase the clarity. I think that's the first thing we should do. We should open up the shadows a little bit, just so it makes it pop. I'm going to add a little bit of saturation in just to bring the color up a little bit more, even a little bit more than that. Maybe just a little bit more shadow opening. That's good. And then I'm going to go down, add a little bit of texture in. Texture is a very powerful slider, so be careful with it. And I'm going to take the sharpening and add some sharpening. There we go. Do you see that? That really sharpens well. I'm going to go about 50 on the sharpening. I'm pretty happy with the way that that's come out. So what we're going to do is we're going to accept that there. We're going to come back out. Now, one thing I do like on the San Francisco cable cars is they have their little light on, and in this case it was later in the day. In fact, I could probably see what time it was, and actually that was UK time, so take 8 hours off of that. So we were around 11 o'clock in the morning, so almost moving towards midday. So but I'd like to put the light back on, and we can do that quite easily. So it's a little tiny day tonight we're going to do here. We're going to take a new mask. We're going to take a radial gradient, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a relatively big one that's the size of the whole lamp, and I'm going to bring that up. Now the reason I do that it's not just the lamp itself, is so that we get a sort of lighting effect on the shell around it as well. So as you can see, that's worked quite well. I'm going to right click on this one, I'm going to duplicate the mask, and then the next one is just going to be the size of the lamp itself. There we go. So that will be really bright now. That should be almost at the very, I'm just going to bring that up. There we go. So let's just come out of there, and then you can see the lights on the front of the tram as it's coming up the hill. So there's not a great deal more we can do with this, but what I will do is a little bit of dodge and burning, because I want to sort of bring the contrast into these trees and these buildings, and I think it will work very well if we sort of brighten up certain areas, darken others. So to do that, I'm firstly going to just decrease the brightness ever so slightly, quarter of a stop on the whole image, and I'm just going to open up the shadows just a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take create a new mask. We're going to take a brush, and this brush we're going to have 100% feather. We're going to have a relatively low 40% flow, and we're going to use this to make the lighter areas lighter. So I'm going to increase the exposure by 1 stop. There we go, one stop, and I'm just going to add a little bit of clarity, not a lot. And but the most important thing of all is that I have auto mask selected, and the reason for that is if I start on a bright area, like you can see with the trees here, it will stay on the bright areas as we go around. It won't light the dark areas up. So just light those trees up through there, this bush under here, and the same over here. Just going to pick up the front leading edges of these trees here. There we go, and it will help brighten up. The auto mask helps pick out the detail from the brighter areas. There we go. So I also want to maybe pick up some areas on these buildings, but I'm not going to use a brush for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use radial gradients, but for now I'm just going to take the lighter areas on the road here and I'm just going to brighten these up slightly, and this lighter there, a light patch there. So it's almost as though the sun's coming through here. I'm just going to pick up those tree trunks a little bit. So happy with that. So let's add a little bit of brightness to the front of the cable car. Just bring that little bit of extra light out and across there. There we go. Right, now I'm going to go and grab a radial gradient, and what we're going to do is we're going to sort of pop it onto these buildings over here and just ever so slightly bring up the exposure, bring up the contrast, and maybe just, oh no, that's black and white. You've got some nice tint colors in the windows, so we can bring up the saturation a little bit. I'm going to right click and duplicate this one and move it across onto these buildings on this side over here. In fact, I'm going to come down a bit lower, but I don't want it on the trees, so I'm just going to subtract a brush and I'm just going to remove it from those trees there, so they're not too bright. It's really important that we don't go too bright with those. We need to sort of make a bit of a feature in the distance here, so I'm going to grab another radial gradient for the far here. I'm going to bring it down so it sort of sits on the bridge and on the road. There we go. And I'm going to bring up the brightness there. So adding in contrast, it's really important that we add in contrast. I just want to brighten that center a little bit. So open up the shadows a little bit. We need to dehaze slightly because the haze is still there in the distance. So if I just bring the dehaze in on that actual radial, as you can see there, and I might even just add a little bit of clarity in there as well, just not too much. I'm just going to brighten that up a little bit more. So you've got that distance there. That's looking good. So you've got sort of detail in the distance, you've got the road, you've got the tram here. Now I think I want to brighten up this sunlight coming across here, so I'm going to just take one more radial gradient here and I'm just going to bring it so it comes across the road here. That works quite well, and it also brightens up the front of the tram quite well. Just again a little bit of contrast. Yep, that works well. I think I might want to darken the top down just a little bit, so I'm going to take a linear gradient here. I'm just going to bring that down and just see if it works by darkening that a little bit at the top there, maybe adding a bit of blue in at the top. So we can do the color wheel thing. We can have the yellows and the reds at the bottom and the blues and the like at the top. So I might even add just a little bit more blue in up there and just brighten it just a little bit. We don't want it too dark, a bit more contrast. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, looking down, I mean, look at the detail here, you know. I mean, I know the Canon R5 only has 45 megapixels, but it's still astounding. I mean, I used to have an A7R4 with 61 megapixels. That was incredible amount of detail. But I do like the Canon color science, is why I've come back to Canon. I do like the color science. The Sonys have more clarity, more detail, more resolution. They just struggle a little bit with the color, and we're always having to correct for the green hue a little bit, but they're getting a lot better. Maybe I should have gone for a Sony R5, A7R5, but I went back to Canon, and I'm happy with my selection. That the lenses are excellent. So let's just go back here, and I think we're pretty well there for now, and leave that the way it was. I'm going to come out of the masks. We're going to just bring down the brightness ever so slightly, bring down those highlights, a little bit more on the shadows. I'm just going to check my blacks and whites, so option, and bring that down. We don't want that too bright, and the blacks, a little bit of black in there as well. There we go. And I think I'm just going to finish off maybe just a little bit of vibrance, make it pop a bit more. And I'm going to go down and I am going to select to see if we can make a post-crop vignette work. So let me just take a little bit in there, maybe -35. And then always remember when you do a post-crop vignette to use the feather. You don't have to go 100% out, but if you do, you can get quite a nice effect of that coming out there. I'm just going to back that back to 25. And you know what? I'm going to say, yeah, I'm happy with that. I think we're done. And I think we're going to call that finished. So I hope you enjoyed that. Really glad that Adobe fixed the problem that we had with Lightroom. So make sure you're updated to 12.5 on Lightroom. And there is a couple of new updates for Photoshop Beta to 25.0. So also make sure you've got those updated, and everything seems to be working very well indeed. So if you did enjoy the video, please click like down below. If you haven't already subscribed, it would be great for you to join my adventure. I'm having a great time here on YouTube. Always appreciate your comments and your tips and points that you like to raise, and I do my best to answer all of them. So I think for now I'm going to say bye bye.